Well, folks, the Chameleon strikes again, yet again. I played a game today, just an unrated classical time control game on Chess, and I was feeling a bit under the weather. Hadn't done a video for a long time. I've been having some computer issues. Think I may have gotten it fixed, but so I decided to just play a kind of a leisurely game and record it as I went along, and I was happy to see the Chameleon was put into effect. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to analyze the game first, just look at it, just a few key moments in the game. I wanted to go through the opening, kind of explain some opening ideas and what's so beautiful about the Chameleon, and then wanted to look at just back-to-back blunders in the game and why I think they're important. So let me get the game queued up here. My opponent played d4, so we play the Slav. And right here we get our normal Chameleon setup. So he plays e3, so we can just do bishop to f5. And now my opponent, I haven't done a video on this, don't think yet, and I haven't gotten to this part in the Chameleon series. But my opponent played c5 here, and basically this is a good way of playing because it basically prevents us permanently from ever playing c5, right? That's one of our main ways of playing in the London system. And it highlights this weakness of our a6 move, pointing out and controlling this hole on e6. And so what I wanted to do was kind of show what our plans are when this happens. Because normally what ends up happening in this position is white will often play queen to b3 and put pressure on b7. And our hole on a7, created by playing a6, allows our knight to go to this a7 square and just protect that weak b7 pawn laterally. Now that didn't happen in this game, but that's just worth mentioning. And more importantly, the fight is going to revolve, when we get in this line, the fight is going to revolve around this e5 square. Because of the fact that I cannot break with c5, I'm going to have to break with e5 if I want to try to equalize this position and get my space back. And that's what ends up happening in this game, and let's go through it. And I'll kind of point out what I thought was probably going to happen, but it didn't end up happening. So my opponent plays moves that are fairly commonly played. I just exchange these light squared bishops. That's great. Castle. And now what I'm doing is I'm looking to set up an e5 break. And I just wanted to mention, it doesn't directly apply in this position per se because my opponent isn't playing very energetically. Like, often they'll have this bishop out on f4, which works against us pounding through that e5 break. But my opponent has locked that bishop in, and that can't take part in the fight for this e5 square. And so I mentioned during the video that I thought how I was going to end up doing it is having the bishop come around like this and lending support to pounding through with e5. So imagine a position where this bishop is out here, or maybe even tucked back in here, and we need to try to fight to get this e5. Here it's pretty easy, and I should have actually, I should have just played queen to c7 and just pounded it through. That's what I should have done, but I didn't. In my head, I had two ideas, and that's what I wanted to share. When this queen side is shut down, taking away this c5 break, there's a couple different ideas that you can use to try to get this e5 break in. And one of them involves moving the knight up here to e4. Now that obviously doesn't work here because he's got the queen and the knight on it. A lot of times their queen will be on b3 because they're trying to harass this b7 pawn. But that's plan number one, would be knight here, vacating this f6 square for the bishop, moving the rook behind it, assisting pounding through with e5. That's out the window here because the queen and the knight prevent my knight from going to e4. And so what I mentioned during the game, and I'll put my live thoughts during the game at the end of this, so it'll be a little bit of a long video, but I'm talking about these ideas first, and then if anybody wants to watch it, they can. Some people don't like that kind of thing. So my thought is, my immediate thing is the general plan, and like I said, normally with this bishop out here adding control, is that our queen will often come to c8 in response to white's queen coming to b3 to tie down this b7 pawn. So our queen is there, and what that does is it vacates this d8 square for our bishop. So our bishop will come to d8, and then it will move to c7, where it can help pound through e5. So we combine that with our rook here, and then we got 3 pieces to pound through this break. Now, because this guy locked it in, he's not playing this like, this is likely an equal position already. But I knew that once during the game, I ended up just doing this. Then I knew I was equalized here, if not better. And so this was like the first key thing I wanted to show, because once we get into this position here, we've equalized as black, right? We got our share of the center. We don't have any disadvantages. Our bishop certainly isn't any worse than his bishop, even though it's not great. It does serve a purpose. It guards this g7 square. But what I wanted to emphasize is I just played this opening based on general principles. Now, my opponent's rating was 1979 on classical Lichess, and so he was clearly just winging it as well. And I think there's a lot to be said for just trying to understand these ideas, play them, and then when you get done with a game like this, just go through it, learn a little bit more. That's kind of how I had those ideas aware. And yeah, I could have done it more efficiently. I could have played queen to c7 and just popped it open. I had these ideas kind of in my mind, and then I got, well, wow, this guy's, because this bishop isn't out here, I can just easily get it in by moving my bishop here and there, and that's what I did, and it's fine. Like, if you look at the computer, I actually have probably like a half a pawn advantage already here. And so I just wanted to point out those like opening ideas. That's how we handle it if they play this early c5, clamping down on our queenside play. And I give my thoughts about the game as we go, but I just wanted to zip ahead because what I've really been trying to work on lately is just like visualization, thought process, consequences of the moves, and yeah, I didn't see one for my own, and that's something I really need to work on, and that's why I've been making kind of less videos, because I'm trying to improve my chess and trying to work hard at it. And I figured since I was kind of feeling under the weather today and wasn't going to be that productive as far as chess goes, I would make a video, and then I was happy to see that the Slav came up. But my opponent, let's get to it here. We get to this position here, and I play this move here, and now my opponent plays this move, rook to b1, protecting this bishop on b2. Now, before, my thought was as well, if he takes my knight, I'll take his bishop. Fine, let's get material off the board. Like I'm actually like ahead in this position. You can watch the game if you want to see how we got into this position, but I just basically need to neutralize his initiative, and I'll be good to go. But he played this move, and I ended up making this disastrous move, and I did not consider the consequences of this move. And so the move I should have played was actually knight here. And the reason for that, I ended up playing the knight here, and my thought was, I'm just going to overprotect g7. If I get enough pieces protecting g7, he can't do anything, and I'm free to just do what I want. Problem with that, the consequence of moving our knight here to e6, one consequence is that it opens up the path from the queen to our king. Opens up this file right here, the G file. And because of that, my opponent could have played knight to h6 with just a devastating knockout. Because it's a check, I can't go here. I would have to come here, and he has this deadly fork. Game over, right? I completely overlooked that. I was kind of so busy looking at my own ideas. And that's why I'm really trying to start to work hard on thought process, the consequence of not only the moves that your opponent makes, but the consequence of the move that you intend on making before you make it. So, that being said, I'm going to go to what happened in the game. My opponent actually returned the favor, and he blundered as well. He played e3. And what's the consequence of that move? This diagonal to the king is now wide open. And the first thing I looked at in the game was actually, I thought, oh, cool. Queen to b6, hitting this, double attacking this. The only problem is they have this response where they can interpose the bishop on d6, counterattacking my queen. And then after further thought, well, that's not the only thing that's open on this diagonal. That's not the only way to attack it. Another way to attack it is bishop here. And this square here is a square where all of our pieces of both our opponents and ours kind of come together. It's kind of like a flashing red square. So the idea is if he moves his king, say we move here, he moves his king over to h1 or h2, we have this nasty move right here, hitting the queen and the rook, and that's winning. And so interestingly, all the fancy opening theory in the world didn't make a lick of difference. Just knowing I needed to play for the e5 break, I had a plan of how to do it, but then I realized, well, since my opponent hasn't even played optimally and gotten his bishop out to contest that b8 h2 diagonal, e5 is not controlled as much as it normally would be if the opponent knew theory and played bishop to f4 at some point. And so I could have just played queen to c7 and then just pounded e5 through. I didn't think of that. I don't know why. I just thought, oh, well, this is interesting. I'll just play, rook to e1, bishop to f8, and pound it that way. I think maybe part of it is I used to play the Philidor defense, and that you can kind of use, sometimes you'll maneuver your bishop there, so it just kind of popped out to me. So it worked out fine. I still got an advantage from the opening from doing that. But the key there is like the consequences of the moves. That's like just learning how to play chess is so much more important than learning these openings. And that's the beauty of the things like the Chameleon, the Scandi, the London, even the Carl Khan, stuff like that, where you can kind of have these understanding concepts, and over time you can kind of figure it out a lot of the time without having to memorize all kinds of stuff. So with all that being said, I'll play now. You can watch it if you want, but I just recorded as I played the game. My thought process wasn't great. Like I said, I'm a bit under the weather. And that's why I just played this unrated game. And but I feel like I'm getting stronger. Not necessarily reflected in this game, but with my having these computer issues and whatnot, being away from electronics for a while, I've really started focusing hard on studying and being undistracted when I study. I feel like I'm getting better. At least certainly in Blitz, I'm knocking off a lot more stronger players than I used to, and I think that has to do with this training that I've been doing. So at some point, I may make a video and just kind of mention, show what I've been doing. But anyway, I hope you found that useful. The key idea is that e5 break and how you do it if they had that bishop on f4. Perhaps I'll make a video soon to add to the Chameleon series, understanding the Chameleon, showing those kind of ideas and looking for some model games. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. You can watch the live results if you want. If not, have a good day. All right, with any luck, we'll get I was hoping to get a deep on special attack, a London or a London collie, something like that, because I'm thinking of making a video series and I want some games to use for that. But this will be fine. We'll do a chameleon. So now this is kind of like a good way of playing against the chameleon, because now this b6 square is a problem. So the thing to remember is if they bring their queen out to b3, we can always put our rook on a7 and defend this. And so our idea is actually to try to steer for the e5 break now. So we're just going to develop. And one thing we can actually do is we can kind of do this dance where put our bishop there to support this e5 break. So we'll get castled. Now he's no longer putting pressure on this, so we may be able to get that break in quicker than we thought. And actually, we may be able to just... He's going to have a hard time getting any more pieces on this square. So he's not playing the most testing way against us, so we can just rapidly get this break in. So we should have an equal position. Pressure here. If he exchanges, we got pressure here. Right. He's hitting this. He's taken control away from b5. So the question is how aggressive do we want to get here? So we got plenty of time. Could do this kind of thing, threatening to take here, keeping this alive. I'm not seeing much better than that, and I don't see a problem with it. Oh, yeah, except this. So kind of mini senior moment there. So we kind of have, his play is to break here. We got pressure there, starting to come out here. We could even consider coming out here, putting pressure on f2. And right now this bishop's kind of nice there because it kind of holds this b4 pawn in place. All right, so we provoked him to create a weakness in his position. So the question is, how do we best make use of that weakness? So we got a hole here. Knight covers it. But this square could be an issue for him going forward. Guess we don't have a whole lot of choice what to do. I guess we have the choice between this square and this square. So coming here occludes our path of our queen getting to g5. Going here is interesting because this could already be an issue even though we only have two pieces. His pieces aren't really coordinated for defense all that well. And of course, he can't hit us with anything like that because of this and this. And we can always bring it back here and then, but from here, we don't have a great place to go with it to get our queen out. So I'm going to go here. What's interesting, if we sack here, we are hitting that and vacating the g5 square for our knight. All right, so I think if we go here, he's got this threat, and he's lining all these pieces up on there. The thing is, though, is there's no rule that we have to take. There's no rule that we have to recapture. So is there any holes in his calculation here that we can take advantage of? He is attacking that rook. And if we go here, he comes here. We have this intermezzo moving our knight back. Let's see if we go here. If he were to take right away, we take. So I don't see any holes in it. I'm going to play it. And now his key queenside play is gone, right? So I think he probably didn't notice that intermezzo there. So where is the queen going to go? Probably there. So are we going to get overrun? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm recording a video. If I go here, comes here. I can go here, cover it like that. If he tries to come here, what's cool is then if he comes here, so here, then we hit him at the same time. I like it. See no holes. So we got 3 pieces on G7. We're up 2 pawns. So basically all we got to do is repel any attacks. This move here kind of jumps out. All right, is that just a blunder? Double attack B2 and the king. So the consequence of this move is he opened up this diagonal. Appears to be, but as they say, when you see a good move, look for a better one. All right. Actually, it's not that simple, is it? Because this knight covers this square. So here, here, here. Queen being hit. Queen being hit. Knight covers it. So he wants to be able to push here and kind of rip us open. So the question is, it's hard to have time to threaten that because we're pinned. But if we were to remove that knight, then all of his ideas fall apart. So another idea on the theme is to work the coordination of these pieces, leaving the knight to hold this down. You know, he's going to do this, but we get this in first. So let's calculate that out and see how that works. We only got, this will be the only piece holding that. So that's kind of the key element of it. Check. If he blocks with any of these pieces, we would just take it and that alleviates pressure from our position. if he moves his king, as I would expect, we play here, we're hitting his queen. He has to move his queen. I don't think that check is deadly because we have this. He moves his queen, we take his rook. And the cool thing is if he takes back with that, this is there. So I think this is just devastating. So see if we missed anything. Here, we go here. So as usual, it just comes down to the consequences of the move. His last move. Open this diagonal. And now we got this winning tactic. So it's going to be about... Oh, and I didn't even consider that. So that should be pretty nasty. If he moves away, we just go there and win his queen. If he takes it, we gain a pawn of material, a queen for a rook and a bishop, but then we take away all the steam out of his position. So let's just play it. All right, so he resigned.